it's interesting for you to come and take a look.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special session titled Coping Up with the New Normal, Defining the New Agile Healthcare Sector. My name is Dr. Sachin Gupta. I'm founder of a company called Salus Healthcare Resources, which is recognized as India's foremost leadership advisory firm in healthcare sector. With me in today's discussion, we have a very special guest, Ms. Mala Vazirani, who is a promoter and director of Transasia Biomedical. Transasia Biomedical, as you know, is India's largest in vitro and homegrown diagnostic and biomedical company. Welcome, Ms. Mala, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So while all of us know you and you have been a source of inspiration for all healthcare entrepreneurs, and because Transasia has been a great success story as far as entrepreneurship in Indian healthcare space is concerned, it would be great if you can share something more about yourself and your journey at Transasia.
Yes, we look forward to that as we have some time to do this. We are a 40-year-old firm, crossed 40 now, I think, on to 42 this year. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be in this in vitro diagnostic world, and it's a pleasure to work with all the pathologists, all the laboratories, and help make sure that diagnosis is accurate for our patients. It's a passion for a lifetime, I would say. It's more than a business for us. We eat, sleep, and dream IVD.
Okay, thanks. That was great. So now we'll get into discussion, and our viewers are keen to know more about how we are coping up. As you know, COVID-19 is an unforeseen kind of phenomena, and it has actually forced organizations across sectors to re-engineer their processes, to redevelop strategies, and the way they have been operating has changed drastically. And medical device sector, both in India as well as globally, has also seen some of these experience some of these changes. So will you like to share some of the key strategies or some of the key operational changes that you implemented at Transasia to optimize utilization of resources during COVID-19 pandemic?
For sure. Well, it was kind of early for me when we went to when the news started coming out of China about the pandemic. I was very, very concerned because news of the virus and the way it was spreading. I knew it would be pretty just a matter of weeks before it would hit Mumbai and hit the rest of the country. So, and when we went to a show in Dubai, the Arab Med Lab, we were when we arrived in immigration, was surprised to see we were in a hall full of about 1,000 Chinese people, all wearing masks and goggles and covering their hair and wearing gloves. And that was very, very unusual. And it gave me some evidence that really those news reports and WhatsApp accounts that were coming out of China, there may be great truth to that. So when I came back to, in fact, before we went to MedLab, I had already talked to our IT team and asked them to make the company prepared to completely work online. All operations and all managers and all the staff, all the key staff should be able to interact with each other over the web and keep operations going in a seamless manner. So we had been on, since the last 4 years, on a long process of automating, digitizing all our business processes. And the work is still on. I can't say that it's complete, but by God's grace, sufficient number of the processes were already automated, and it was therefore not very difficult to go online with almost every process. In fact, we started doing the trainings for people online when the
Okay.
lockdown was imposed. And knowing how contagious the virus is, I tried to share this with as many people that I know in Mumbai as soon as I came back. People in our company, and I imposed a lockdown on myself, my family, my staff 1 month prior to Mr. Modi did, in fact, and was preparing for the oncoming pandemic. So I can't. We were not really taken by surprise or anything of that sort. In fact,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, so that was very proactive because not many companies, especially in India, have done that. And I know many people who were there at Arab Health also, which happens along with the
you were
lab
there.
conference.
You were there too.
This year I didn't go. I've been going
No,
there
no,
for
no,
last 3 4 years.
yeah, you didn't go. Yeah, I was there
Yeah,
this. Yeah,
this
it
year
was.
I also was anticipating, that something is not right. Uh, so that's why, although I registered, but I didn't go.
Oh, well, that
But
was
I've,
very
yeah,
wise of you.
yeah,
That was very wise of you. But I remember I was the only person wearing a mask and gloves. When I saw the Chinese people wearing the mask and gloves, I immediately organized for our whole team on our booth. But
right,
they were not yet, prepared to accept that it was so serious. Even though all
right,
around us, we were in an ocean of Chinese companies, and all were wearing the mask and the goggles and gloves.
right,
But our
right,
people were still very secure and not willing to do that. But I did
right,
anyway.
right.
I think we have to.
So,
I think we have to respect every living thing, including a semi-living thing like the virus,
right, that's right.
especially when
So,
it's so dangerous.
right. So, so while we know that virus has done a lot of destruction, both of economic as well as humanitarian front, it has also opened some of the opportunities, for healthcare entrepreneurs like yourself. So, will you
Yes.
like to share some of the opportunities, how you were able to spot them, and how you'll able to utilize those opportunities? Uh,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm not sure whether we spotted the opportunities or the opportunities spotted us. There's a bit of both happening. But certainly, when we came back from Dubai for MedLab, we immediately called the R&D team and said we need to do a test. This would become very serious, and if there is no vaccine, then plasma therapy will be very much the need of the hour. So let's see if we can find if we can how quickly we can put an antibody test together. Uh, to do that, because at that time there was we are not in the pharmaceutical, so making drugs was not really something that that's not our forte. But certainly we wanted to be involved in the process of the diagnosis and saving of lives, and put whatever our core strengths were uh, into this battle. So our efforts started. In fact, our team in the US started, and within a month and a half, they came up with an antibody test. And our team in India too did the same. They had a lot more difficulty getting the positive samples, or they would have been maybe earlier than the US team. But there was a lot of control, government control, and the hospitals were only treating the COVID patients, and it was hard to get the serum for development. So that delayed us a bit. But meantime, our US subsidiary came out with a test, which is a very accurate test. And
Hmm.
our Indian test is equally good. Uh, in fact, we were able to find people who were in our company who were already COVID positive, but asymptomatic.
Okay.
So, but they had
Okay.
the early antibodies, and surprisingly, COVID shows some early antibody in many people. And so we set them for the PCR test, and they all tested positive, all of them.
Okay.
So that's been our contribution. And then we, in this lockdown, we did some extraordinary things. We made a VSL3 lab on wheels that was
Okay.
flagged off by Dr. Harshvardhan. We
Okay.
built an entire factory to produce all kinds of tests for COVID, which will be inaugurated at the end of this month. So that whole factory, which is more than 30,000 square feet,
Okay.
and we with BSL-3 manufacturing and R&D spaces, it's it's a very high tech factory, but
Okay.
it's been built in 4 months flat.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I must say that it's been a pleasure to work with some departments of the government because they were very keen, and in fact, they were very keen to collaborate and to bring all the companies who had capability, who had the technology. They were very eager to, prop them up and to sort of scale up their abilities, and including us. And so they invited, proposals, and we participated, and we were, selected to build a factory in the new, very high tech medical zone in Vishakhapatnam.
Oh, yeah. 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 So we
So,
have seen actually a lot of proactiveness from current regime in kind of engaging with the entrepreneurs and listening to them
very hope
with
giving, I would say.
yeah that's a music to my ears. Okay.
Yeah, very
So
hopeful.
yeah we have actually seen that across the world, people, of course, doctors and healthcare workers, we all are involved in combating this disease. Same time, there are companies which are not in healthcare sector. There are people who are not in healthcare. They are also involved in contributing their efforts towards containment of this disease. For example, in US, I got to know that Tesla and Ford and GE are using their air conditioning and some other manufacturing units for manufacturing some respiratory devices. In
Right.
UK, University of Nottingham, collaborated with Mercedes, and they are producing CPAP machines. Yesterday only, I came across an article which said Louis Vuitton has re-engineered, one of the
Yes,
sun caps, which can be
designer.
used. Yes, which can be used as a face shield as well. So lot of process re-engineering, or product re-engineering, I'll say. And in India, our PM has been actually pushing, and he has been saying, "Be vocal for local." So will you like to highlight some of you talked about Transasia, but can you elaborate more about efforts from Indian enterprises in medical device sector who have actually contributed towards PM's vision of being vocal for local, and augmenting manufacturing in medical device sector?
Well, I think number of companies have come up with different kind of testing. Now I think all the PCR testing is done by kits made by companies, and that's huge. That's huge. And like Transasia to this factory that will start manufacturing, we would be able to take care of huge quantities of test kits, and more than we ever imagined out of this facility. So yeah, yes, I mean many new entrants have come in, and the government has given them given them the support. In AMTZ zone itself, they have started manufacturing, the N95 masks, the small temperature machines. I know of one company that's made remote kind of sensing ECG devices so that person is
Right.
not exposed to the patient, and on an iPad you can take an ECG after guiding the patient to put on all the leads himself. Yes, there's a lot of innovation going on. Very good innovation it is. In fact, I think it brought out the creativity in many people, and it was all for the good. It was tough times, during the lockdown. Getting anything done was very difficult because of logistics issues,
Right.
and because of the barriers between towns and states and not able to leave the city. supplies became such a problem. Getting people across, keeping engineers going. I would say every day people had to be innovative and entrepreneurial to just do their normal job.
Right, right, right. Okay, so just now you're talking about the government is facilitating entrepreneurs and they are listening. So what more do you expect from the government? How they can facilitate medical device sector in India? What can be done from public policy perspective?
The wish list is long. The wish list is long, and
Okay,
I think there are many battles being fought at the moment, and I think there are many undercurrents to what is happening. Uh, and I think there has to be a distinction between you know Indian companies and companies owned where decision makers and the shareholding is of Indian origin and foreign FDI. Because obviously, push comes to shove in a state of natural emergency, priorities of people and countries will all move to supporting their own, uh, their own citizens, and not that's not incorrect if you ask me. For example, America First policy, and it was in the beginning very difficult to get any products out of the US because just
right,
like India said no exports, US said no exports. Okay,
right,
and whatever the local countries companies were making, if they don't get raw materials from America, they can't make most of
right,
the
right,
products here. Even if they put up their plants here. So, and I think the whole economic, the way of doing business, globalization is going to change
right,
because
right,
globalization was about super specialization. And the concept was that, okay, if X is great at making, whatever, optical wires, optical fibers, let that be the best, biggest factory in the world and let them have all the efficiencies so that all the users around the world will get the highest quality and the best pricing from such a manufacturer. But
right,
after the pandemic, it's very clear that it doesn't take much to rock the global supply chains.
right,
And therefore, we have to rethink that in times of, pandemics like that can come again because now it's very
right,
clear there's the new news and the evidence is out that this is a customized virus and
right, right,
from China. And that can happen again and again. Everybody could make one in their lab. Because
right.
this is bio warfare. This
Yes.
can be a new form of terrorism. You see.
Right,
So
right, right,
and therefore I think that we have to look at a whole new world, seeing that yes, the humankind has advanced. There are benefits of this technology, but there are huge downsides also. And managing these downsides, governance relating to technology issues, and then executing and monitoring, policing the world for technology that can threaten the whole world is now going to be, uh,
right,
something that everybody is going to be very aware of, conscious of, and I think the trust levels also have gone down between countries, between people, between neighbors, and so it's a different world, completely different world than was in March when the lockdown was announced.
okay. So while I understand that manufacturing, especially manufacturing of medical devices, is being revamped. One of the areas uh, of concern was that there was very little innovation or very little biomedical research to promote indigenous indigenous medical devices in India. So any forward movement on that front that you know about?
Well, as I said, the will of certain, I would say, certain corridors in the government are to support uh, the growing of the medical device sector in India. But there are
Yeah.
also cross currents. There are cross currents, obviously, to that as well. There are
Right.
lobbies that don't want that to happen, and there are
Oh,
lobbies
okay.
that do want that to happen. So that there's always this tug of war, because it depends on I think everybody is looking out to which side of the toast their butter is on, I suppose. But I think even though on any side, I would say at the end of the day we are Indians. We have to have kind of a priority to make sure that there are certain basic strengths in this country to look after its own people.
Right. Right.
And I think I'm a multinational. I have many of my dear friends are working with multinationals and um, directors in multinationals, and no issue, because we have also own companies overseas. So.
Right.
But all having said all that, I think there needs to be a level of accountability and responsibility towards the country in which you're operating,
Right.
and that if that is in place, I think then we can have good policies that can support all sectors and
Yeah.
create a healthy competitive environment.
Right.
They need us to be competitive, and we need them to spur us on as well. So
Right.
but this needs to be a little bit more balanced. Right
Uh,
now, Indian companies are having a very hard time, and
That's right.
that's so good for India.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we have talked about medical device sector, but now we'll come to Transasia, and
Yes,
will and which is a great success story. And just now you're talking that you have some subsidiaries overseas, and I know that you have some subsidiaries in Europe as well as UK, and it has been a 42 years of hard work that you have put in to the
yes.
company. So, would you like to share some of the challenges that you overcame to reach where you are today? So, what were
Oh,
those challenges and how you overcome those?
well, I'm very fortunate. Times have changed, and entrepreneurs today will not have to go through the kind of challenges that we went through. But at every corner, wherever we hit a roadblock, it's as if by divine intervention, help came along. So whether it was the need for investment, the company was started by my husband, who was a social, he was more of a social worker, I would say, and budding activist, and he wanted to change some things in India, but he's a very practical guy. He needs to do some work. He speaks less and he works more. He lets his actions speak for him, his passion. So with a little bit of money, he started the company, but you can't go far with 250 rupees.
Oh,
So, but I think his intention was so good and so genuine that his friends, were God sent, and they came together and insisted he accepts a loan from them and invest in this company. And yes, that set us off in the first for the first bit of the first few months of the company, first few months, I would say, year or two. And after that, it was. Yeah, we managed to sort of convince initially our supplier companies overseas to grant us some rather favorable credit terms, and seeing the enthusiasm and in our genuineness, I think they fell in line. They just obliged us, and I think that helped us to grow. And I think 91, when the economy opened up with Manmohan Singh opening up the economy, at that time, it was easier to import raw material. It was easier to enter into different technology agreements. At that and the banking sector became more industry friendly. So we set up our own manufacturing. We did our own R&D, because by then we, struggling to keep any machine going was what drove us to, indigenizing for spare parts, and then the whole machine, because we also in those days had a foreign exchange crunch, and without foreign exchange we couldn't import machines, but then we decided, okay, we need to manufacture them because our customers needed them, hospitals needed them, and
Right.
how long are we going to be dependent on the rest of the world to meet our needs? And it's time to do something for the world instead.
Right.
So yeah, so this is great. We get a chance to make in India for the world from India.
Right. That's great. So what's
Yeah.
next for Transasia? So what is your vision? Where do you see company going in next 5-10 years?
So we have a whole new pipeline. So it you spoke earlier of innovation in India, but
Right.
to do really good science, it's not an overnight. You can't really do that overnight in a short span of time. It takes years.
Right.
Of course, except I mean, in the IT space and in the communication space, you have a lot of breakthroughs. But I think in medical science, that takes its time, because you're dealing with human lives and there's long
Right.
periods of validation, and so it's not easy to innovate new solutions or overnight, and you need to have a long track record of and be trusted for what you do for your science.
Right.
And it was for that reason that we actually went and acquired companies overseas who had the
Okay.
capability, who had the experience, who had a very experienced scientists with them, and we
Okay.
collaborated using their strengths and our Indian energy and investment, and collaborated to, and we've got an entire new pipeline of products coming through in the next few years, in immunology, in hematology, in
Mm-hmm.
and robotics. So and these are products that will be for the times to come. So these are products that will have a global market, and
Okay.
that gives us a chance to grow as a company. And of course, now that model was based on the old globalization model, but
Right.
I but I think in healthcare, still we need to put ourselves. We are humans after all,
Right.
and I think as far as possible, we will make multiple manufacturing bases so that every the logistics of countries are not the supply chains are not disrupted in
Right.
times of pandemic. We will have to reorganize some of the structures. Uh, this might increase costs. I don't know. They might reduce costs. I don't know. We can't say about that. But we need to be relevant, and we need to be sure that we are there where people need us.
Right. So amazing vision that you have for Transasia. What will be your advice for budding entrepreneurs in healthcare?
I think you have to start with a need. Often entrepreneurs work on a product, and the product is a cool product as it goes, but then they go out to find a need that it can fill, and in the process there's a lot of money wasted, in investment
All right.
and time and so on and so forth, and a lot of disappointments, and that's the reason why a lot of startups don't really make it. The
Right.
majority of them, in fact, don't. It's rare for startups to really make it big. But those that identify the need, a genuine need, a need that you can, that you benefit others. You have to have the
Right.
purpose, and you have to have the vision that your product, your company, your service is going to add value to people's lives.
Right. Right.
They're going
Right.
to make it better somehow. And if
Right.
you can, and if that's the starting point, and then you build whatever you need to build around it, I
Yes.
think it gets so much easier, to find
Right.
acceptance.
Okay.
That's been
So
our personal experience.
okay. So that's great. So in fact, there is somebody called Ron Kaufman based out of Singapore. So he
Mhm.
always say that when you plan to be an entrepreneur, so don't don't become an entrepreneur for becoming rich, but develop a product or a service which adds something to some sort of value to mankind, and you will become a successful entrepreneur, and money is a byproduct of that. So I think you
Yeah,
rightly highlighted that.
you're
Yeah, that
absolutely
we
right. Yeah, that is exactly how it is. We never imagined that, we could go. We had the wind in our sail for 42 years. We never imagined that the company would be, one day a multinational company, and our products would be going to over 100 countries. We
right.
would have, 16 subsidiaries from Vietnam to Brazil, and
Oh,
every
wow.
country in between.
Oh,
So,
great.
this is a very magical thing. I think it's destiny. I think something, you know, there's a divine plan also somewhere. One needs to tune into that and flow with
Mm,
that plan. If you can, if you are
mm.
lucky, be able to sense it. I
So,
certainly, I won't say that business is only it's only an intellectual or a venture of just grit. uh, I think there's a lot of, there has to be a spiritual journey for you. It's your life as a
right.
human being. And if it's helping
Yeah,
you grow and it is getting you somewhere, satisfaction, I think that journey is worthwhile more than the money. Money becomes irrelevant after very, very, very quickly, once your needs are met.
sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. So, that's a great session. So, my last question to you. So, what do you think about this Voice of Healthcare broadcast, channel, which they have started, where we are having interaction and how it can be useful to healthcare sector?
Well, I think it's very good because I think you can air a lot of views here that you don't really have to have your own personal agenda, but you can talk about the larger good. And I think
Right,
there are very few platforms where you can do that. Everybody otherwise has something to promote or something to sell, and
right.
there's and I think we need a space where we can really talk about genuinely what are the needs and what's the best way to do things and how do we go about it and how do we collaborate for a larger good. That's why I like your platform.
Great. Thank you. So we are running out of time, Dr. Mala. So thank you so much for your time
Thank you
today
so much.
and speaking to
Thank you so
viewers.
much, Dr.
Yeah,
Sachin. Thank you so much, Dr.
thank you.
Sachin. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure to
thank you.
talk to you. And
Same
thank you.
here. And thank you, Voice of Healthcare team, for organizing this. And thanks to all the viewers who joined us today for this session. So thanks and Corona Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you.